I'm Stephen Benoon, and you are watching Israeli News Live, a prophetic segment of the news tonight we'll be bringing to you, so it'll be a little bit lengthy here. News that came out right as Shabbat began out of Lebanon on Israel National News. It was posted with them first from the American Bureau. Says that Nasrallah warns Israel, "We don't want war, but don't test us." Quite clear, it's a threat there. This was done in a video recorded statement. AFP is the one that picked this up. It says Hezbollah chief Hassan Nasrallah said Friday that his group is not seeking confrontation with Israel, but warned the Jewish state that the conflict could go beyond Lebanon's borders in any new war. He also, the article also said, in an address via video linked to thousands of supporters who gathered in Hezbollah's southern Beirut stronghold, Nasrallah declared that Hezbollah's response to any future Israeli attack will no longer be limited to Lebanese territory. He said Hezbollah would no longer respect the rules of engagement. "We do not want war, but the resistance is military ready and we are not afraid of war," Nasrallah said, using the term resistance to refer to Hezbollah. "You tested us. Do not test us again," he warned Israel. His address came 2 days after Hezbollah carried out a missile strike that killed 2 Israeli soldiers and wounded 7 others near the Israeli-Lebanon border. The strike was in retaliation of a January 18th airstrike inside Syria attributed to Israel that killed 6 Hezbollah fighters, including the senior official of Jihad Mughani and the Iranian general. Now, it's kind of interesting. It also lays to rest those that were coming on our own channel there and posting false accusation that Israel had more soldiers killed in the attack and that Hezbollah was not the one backing down. Well, now they actually have Nasrallah doing a video statement saying that he doesn't want war. But clearly he is threatening from all sides. He also said, "We will bear Israel's responsible for any future killing in cold blood of Hezbollah youth," he threatened. And he also said it is outright legally in human terms and morally to face the enemy anywhere, anytime, in any way we deem appropriate, he warned. He said, "I want to be clear, the resistant will no longer recognize any such as the rules of engagements," which we had already quoted that to you earlier there. Hezbollah planned in its counterstrike against Israel, which he described as highly professional and intelligent, just a few hours after the Golan attack. "They killed us in broad daylight. We did too," said Nasrallah, adding that Israel's strike was at 11:30 a.m., ours at 11:45, and was at 11:25 or 11:35. "They killed and wounded our men. We killed and wounded theirs. Missiles for missiles," added Hezbollah leader. Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon warned Hezbollah on Wednesday following its attack on the soldiers that Israel would have zero tolerance for any attacks. "Iran and Hezbollah are trying and will continue to try to harm Israel in any way from the Golan Heights and certainly from Lebanon through unembedded terrorist networks who plan to act against military and civilian targets," Ya'alon said. Of course, the article goes on more. We will publish this on our Facebook Israeli News Live page as well. But as I mentioned to you, this is a prophetic segment of the news, and I think it's very important. I know this video will not please everyone by no means to know that Israel will definitely suffer some major losses. There are some Jewish people that know that Israel will suffer major losses in the first incursion of war that's going to come upon the Jewish people, but God will intervene in the long run. So let me just state that clearly. I want to first take you to Psalm 83. This is where a lot of people are looking at. They're saying, is this going to be the Psalm 83 war? So let's take a look at Psalm 83. "Keep thou not silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make atonement. They that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee." speaking about their confederate against the Lord. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites and the Moab and the Hagarenes. It goes on to name the different Arabic countries that are surrounding Israel there. And then Israel cries out, says before the Lord, Asher is also joined with them, that they have hope in the children of Lot. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as unto Sisera, as unto Jabin. And Israel continues on throughout the rest of the chapter here, asking God to retaliate on their behalf or to intervene in this war, as he has done in wars past. But the thing is, in the beginning, God is not going to. And that's one reason why we see the prophet saying, keep thou not silence, O God. Hold not thy peace. It's as if God is holding his peace in the very beginning there. But what's interesting is in Psalm 83, it clearly identifies who is in the attack. Not only who's in the attack, but who is heading the attack. And it is Esau that is actually heading the attack. Obadiah clearly identifies Esau as the modern day Romans. Clearly, it is in the book of Obadiah where God says he accuses Esau with being one when Israel is being destroyed in the day of their calamity. And he says that you stood by, you were as one with them, you're confederate with them. And so therefore, God clearly identifies Esau, which was the Roman general Titus, who was part of the destruction of the Second Temple era. And therefore, they come together again. They are in council. This is like a council meeting in the Hebrew when you begin to read this in the Hebrew language. It says the tabernacles of Edom. The tents of Edom, in other words. So the thing is, Esau and his descendants, Esau being Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, the Vatican itself, and their tents, those are the churches that have joined together with Rome in their anti-Semitic attack on Israel. They are actually turning all the people against the Jews. And that is very sad and unfortunate. But nonetheless, what's really a blasphemous statement in this is the fact that they're not turning to God. They're not turning to God for their answers, but now even the world, they've lifted up their head in this regards here. They have lifted up the Pope of Rome to be their head. You know, it's kind of interesting. In some of the studies that my wife has been doing recently, she brought out to me the word vicar. She said, do you know what the word vicar actually means? Because it is publicly said all the time that the Pope of Rome is the vicar of Christ. Now, I knew the word means that he is a substitute for Christ. She said it is a Latin word, and it literally means, in the Greek language, anti, the antichristo. The anti being the similitude of Christ. It is actually, when they are calling him the vicar, they are literally calling him in the Latin tongue the Antichrist. Here it is, right before you in plain language, and yet the world is still baffled by who the Antichrist is. Many say, well, he's the false prophet, but he's not the Antichrist. I need to do a video on that one, I guess, separately to help you to really understand that a little bit better. He is the Antichrist. A lot of people are saying, we're looking there, what about the wound? You'll have to be wounded soon. Rome has already been wounded. Rome was nearly put completely out of business. But Rome has revived and is a world empire. It took a deadly blow and came back to terrorize the world once again. Anyway, going into Psalm 83 here. Looking at a little bit, because this is not the focus of the prophetic segment here. I'm going to take you into Deuteronomy, Moses' own vision of Israel in the latter days, as well as going back to Micah 4, to share with you exactly the Psalm 83 attack that's coming against Israel, because they are coming against Israel. They're confederate. Now keep in mind, all of these nations have had diplomats going to Rome, including Iran. You think that's kind of interesting, right? Of course, the Pope also has gone to the King Jordan. King Jordan has gone to him. Bashar Assad out of Syria sends his own delegation to the Pope of Rome. The Lebanese, the Christian community there is a Catholic community. The Iranians send their diplomats to Rome. They're all going and bowing down to the Vatican for the instructions of what will happen, including negotiating out peace settlements and things of this nature in the Middle East. Very interesting how Rome controls the whole thing. Well, anyhow, they come together. The head that is lifted up, or the leader, of course, is the Pope of Rome. Of course, they're going to make it look like, because the Pope of Rome doesn't want you thinking that he's the Antichrist, even though he says it outright that he is. They're going to make you think it's some Arabic guy in the first place. But they come together with the Arabic nations, the Ishmaelites and Moab and the Hagarenes, etc. It says, they have taken crafty counsel against thy people. This is David writing it. Thy people is Israel. And it's exactly what they're doing. And consulted against thy hidden ones. That's your two witnesses. They're consulting because they know that there's two witnesses coming on the scene. They don't know what to do about it. Because the two witnesses bring judgment that they won't be able to deal with. So anyway, I want to set this stage for you here, that Rome is actually, it's only a puppet. They're the leader of this, and this Psalm 83 war doesn't really show us that God comes in to do anything and victoriously for them. It's only showing they're begging God to come. And of course, that's once it comes down to a slaughter. Now, going back to Deuteronomy, first thing I want to show you, though, is in chapter 32, verse 3 and verse 4. Moses says here, because I will publish the name of the Lord. Ascribe you greatness unto our God. He is the rock. His work is perfect. For all his ways are judgment. A God of truth and without iniquity, just and right is he. Interesting how Moses establishes two things. One, he will be the one to publish the name. And that clearly, as I said the other day in the message yesterday, that it is Moses that never fulfilled the prophecy where he said the children of Israel will ask him, Mashemo, what is your name? What is his name? Speaking about God's name. God told him at the time, just say, Ihaye Asha Ihaye, I will be that which I am. Or I will prove to you who I am. The thing is it was never fulfilled because Israel, we have no biblical record where they asked Moses, what is God's name? But in this day, Israel will need to know. In fact, maybe this is one of the things that they're looking for in the sign that it is actually Moses that has returned, along with Elijah. And that is that they know the divine name of the Creator. As we go a little further down, though, let me take you into verse 30, starting at verse 34. And this is where, again, Moses is prophetically speaking of Israel's future. He says, actually, if you go back to verse 29, he says, God says, oh, that they were wise. Actually, let me back to verse 28. For they are a nation void of counsel, neither is there any understanding in them. Oh, that they were wise. That they understood this, that they would consider their latter end. Now God's going to deal with Israel on the latter end. How should one chase 1,000 and two, put 10,000 to flight, except their rock had sold them, and the Lord had shut them up? That's exactly what happened. We see this in 70 AD. Israel cannot deny the fact God swore that he would drive them to the four corners of the earth. He goes into this prophecy here in Deuteronomy, the 32nd chapter. It's actually considered a song of Moses. And clearly, because you have to remember, Moses in Exodus 15 says, Asherah ladonai ga'o ve'kevet. He's talking about that he would get victory over the horse and his rider, and he would cast them into the sea. He'd hurl them into the sea. A future prophetic event where Moses literally takes that Antichrist rider and throws him into the sea, the horse and his rider. Now, what's interesting though here, notice what he says here. When you get down to verse 35, to me belongeth vengeance and recompense. Their foot shall slide in due time, for the day of their calamity is at hand, and the things that shall come upon them make haste. For the Lord shall judge his people. Who's God going to judge? His own people. He returns them home. Now, just so, I'm going to back up just for a moment so you understand what we're dealing with here. If you look at Micah chapter 4, Because you think, well, Israel's returned home. God's not going to judge them. Yes, He is. In Micah chapter 4, God says in verse 6, "In that day, saith the Lord, will I assemble her that halteth, and I will gather her that is driven out, and her that I have afflicted." This is Israel being brought back to their homeland. "And I will make her that halteth a remnant, and her that was cast afar off, a strong nation, and the Lord shall reign over them in Mount Zion from henceforth even forever." All right? "And thou, tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, and to thee shall it come, even the first dominion, the kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. Now why dost thou cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished? For pains have taken thee as a woman in travail." So God clearly shows that He brings Israel home, but at the same time, then Israel goes into travail. Then He questions Israel, "Where is your king? Where is your counselor?" Even in Deuteronomy, it says the same thing. It says that in verse 29 or 28? For they are a nation void of counsel. Why are you void of counsel? Because the counselor, the Prince of Peace, the counselor, the mighty God, the Mashiach, was killed back at the time of the dispersion of 70 AD, when Yeshua was actually taken off the scene. Your counselor was done away with. God asked you, where is your king? You wanted a king to lead you in battle. When you come back as a nation, you came back, God returns you home, but you didn't come back the godly way of doing it. When God led Israel, He led them by Samuel the prophet. Because why? Even then, God wanted to lead you Himself, but you would not. You said to Moses, "Let not God speak lest we die. Let Moses speak." So God gave you a prophet, and God began to use it that way. So He gave them, finally they had Samuel, and when they had Samuel, they rejected Samuel. They said, "We want a king to rule over us, like the rest of the nations, to go out and fight our battles." And God said, "They haven't rejected you, Samuel. They rejected me, and you've done the same thing. You come home as a nation in this day, and instead of doing the way you should have done, again, you have appointed yourself a king. You anointed Benjamin Netanyahu to be king over Israel. And he has failed you as a king. Not to say he's not a good man, but it's not God's provided way. God wants to rule His own people. So therefore, you must learn from the mistakes that we made. We must come back to God the way we left God. I say we because I am a Jew as well. We left God with Samuel. We must come back to God that way. And then from Samuel to Moses, from Moses to the direct relationship with God that He gave us in the beginning, that He offered us at the time at Mount Sinai. And that relationship will only be established through Mashiach. So anyway, going back, God questioned them, "Where is your king?" That's in Micah chapter 4. That's verse 9. And in verse 10 He says, "In pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. Now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt go even to Babylon. And there shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies." Rome is the enemy, but you're going to go to Rome to try to get deliverance. It's prophesied by the prophet Moses when he speaks of the latter end. Let's go back to Deuteronomy chapter 32 and the Song of Moses, verse 36. "For the Lord shall judge His people, and repent Himself for His servants when He seeth that their power is gone, and there is none shut up or left." Psalm 83. The enemy surrounds us, the enemy attacks. But it takes the breaking of the military power in Israel for us to recognize that this is not God's provided way. "And He shall say, Where are their gods? Their rock in whom they trusted." Isn't that a shame that God has to ask you that? Why? Because Israel has gone to Rome. The son of Ahab Shimon Peres, who started this whole ball of rolling, going to the Pope of Rome, looking for mercy, thinking that he's the only one. He said from his own mouth, the only one that can bring peace to the Middle East is Pope Francis. You made him your rock. I thought God was the only one that could bring peace to the Middle East. And God clearly says that he serves gods. Because why? The Catholic Church serves the gods of Egypt. No wonder why God has to come and deliver our people from Rome. Because it's nothing but a bunch of Egyptians. Hadad trained under them. Brought the gods of Egypt into Rome. Into Esau, being a son of Abraham, brought idolatry as well. And then Shimon Peres brings this idolatry back into Israel. And the next thing we see Benjamin Netanyahu doing the same thing, going down to the Pope, bowing down. The only way you can have an audience with the Pope of Rome is to bow and kiss his ring. To show your allegiance to him. Shame on all of you in Israel that do these things. He says there, God says, where are their gods? Their rock in whom they trusted, which did eat the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings. Do you know God is accusing Israel of giving them the wine to do the drink offering on Mount Zion? You already know the prophecy there. I've already read it to you many times. You drank, that's in Obadiah. Drink on my holy mountain, Mount Zion. He says here, let them rise up and help you and be your protection. You trust in them. This is where you're going to cry out for a United Nations force, because that's the Pope's army as the United States and the United Nations. Are they going to deliver you from the enemy? Now you have the Lebanese leader there, Nasrallah, threatening that it will go beyond the Lebanese border. So he says, let's see if he'll deliver you. God says, let them rise up and help you and be your protection. Then God says in verse 39, see now that I, even I, am He, and there is no God with me. I kill, I make alive, I wound, I heal. Neither is there any that can deliver out of my hand. For I lift up my hand to heaven and say, I live forever. If I with my glittering sword and mine hand take hold on judgment, I will render vengeance to mine enemies and will reward them that hate me. I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and they that with the blood of the slain and of the captives from the beginning, the revenges upon the enemy. Then he says in verse 43, rejoice, O ye nations, with his people, for he, that is God himself, will avenge the blood of his servants and will render vengeance to his adversaries and will be merciful unto his land and to his people. And Moses came and spoke all the words of this song in the ears of the people, he and Hoshea, the son of Nun, sung these words, rehearsed them before the people. So see, God has to come to avenge the blood of his servants. And Micah, finishing up what it says here, verse 11, now also many nations are gathered against thee that say, let her be defiled, and let our eye look upon Zion. But they know not that the thoughts of the Lord, neither understand they his counsel, for he shall gather them as the sheaves unto the floor. Arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, for I will make thine hoofs brass, and thou shalt beat in pieces many people, and I will consecrate their gain unto the Lord, and their substance unto the Lord of the whole earth. God fights for Israel to avenge the blood of Israel. Because in the beginning of this battle, it will seem that Israel, there is not much hope. God does come and deliver her when Israel begins to recognize Rome is not your deliverance. The Pope of Rome is not God, nor is his pagan gods the God of Israel. I'm Stephen Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live with your prophetic segment, Erev Tov.